Listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins. Welcome one, welcome all to this podcast where we dive into the intimate details of the people that make up the punk, hardcore, indie rock, emo, metal scenes that we all care about deeply. It's affected us to our core, and we follow along as these bands and people that are documenting it release music, release zines, release podcasts, movies, whatever it is that they are creatively pursuing. That is what this show focuses on. I love the fact that one week we can have a death metal band, the next week we can have an emo band, and then the following week we can have like a traditional hardcore band. I love being able to bounce around all these different scenes, and hopefully if you listen along week by week, or maybe once a month, no pressure, but you're able to kind of thread some of these stories together and realize, hey, we're all kind of coming from the same place. Today is a thrilling conversation with the one and the only Scott Winegard. He plays bass in Texas Is the Reason. And if you have been living under a rock, Texas Is the Reason is playing a bunch of incredible shows. They're doing their own headlining thing starting in mid-September, and it runs until early October. And then they're playing Best Friends Fest. They're playing Riot Fest. They're doing a gig with Jawbreaker. They are out and about. And it's thrilling because personally, Texas Is the Reason was a huge band for me in opening up my portal to listening to music that didn't scream or wasn't like, they're aggressive as far as like, guitar driven music, but not to the extent where, if you're listening to Earth Crisis or Strife or whatever as a, 15-year-old kid, to have the framing of the fact that like, oh, I guess I am allowed to listen to music outside of the context of, something screaming at me. And anyways, Scott, I've actually been trying to get on the show for ever and a day. So shout out to his manager, John, love you. Previous guest of the show, plays in a band called Down to Earth Approach. Just love the guy. But Scott is also an interesting dude because he is like the most vegan of vegan people in regards to like he got into this whole, plant-based scene even before people were using that terminology. And so we were able to talk about a lot of things, but go check out Texas Is the Reason because they're playing a lot of cool shows, hopefully in your area. And if not in your area, make plans now. Let's talk about the ways you can support this show. First of all, email me, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. Love to receive any and all feedback, whether that's guest ideas or pitches or whatever's on your brain. I recently got a note from somebody in Germany, and it's just humbling to see this thing travel to so many different people. And yes, of course, I see the numbers, I see the downloads, like all of that analytics stuff is cool. But when you humanize it, it really brings the world much closer together. And I know I'm saying like the most obvious things possible, but I truly, truly do appreciate it. So always reach out, even if it's just being like, you know what, I've thought about it before, I'm going to do it now. You can also leave a rating and review on the Apple Podcast page or simply leave a rating on the Spotify page. Those help out tremendously, gets the algorithm working in our favor, and Lord knows, we're all slaves to the algorithm, right? But all jokes aside, all of that helps. And plus, it only takes precious seconds of your time, and I promise I will give them back. Actually, I won't. I technically can't give you time back, but you get it. It's not asking much. So let's talk about weekly recommendations. There's a link in the show notes where I have been recommending music for the better part of 2+ years. And this is just kind of getting things in your brain that you might need to check out. You may need to push. You may have heard the band's name. And truthfully, it's just hearing it from one more source being like, you need to listen to this. Or maybe you just trust everything I say, which don't. Please don't. But this week's pick is a band that I've seen their name around, but truthfully only dove in probably the past 2-3 weeks, and I've become obsessed. Nuevo Testamento. They are just released an EP called Trouble, and that's the thing that I've been spinning. They are a band, or I guess you'd like synth pop. I don't know. Like there's all these electronic music descriptors that I do a very, very poor job of placing on it. But basically, if you like, electronic dance music, but not like the, Tiesto, Calvin Harris stuff, we're talking like 80s synth pop. that is what this band does. They're a 3-piece. They're from LA. They actually played Sound and Fury. They're going on tour with Scowl, so they are obviously hardcore adjacent, but they bring the dance party. And it brings me back to, when I was like just a child listening to, Madonna for the first time and just being like, wow, this is really fun. And like, the song Holiday, wow, that's really catchy. This EP brings back those vibes, but obviously puts it in a modern twist, but then, is hearkening back to the 80s and, maybe a little bit of the early 90s. But I highly, highly recommend you check out this EP because, truthfully, I think it's really cool that they can obviously play with aggressive bands and people have seemingly been enjoying that. And it's a nice break in the action to be like, oh, maybe I don't need to do, yes, I can still do stage dives to this band, but, maybe I can just have a dance party instead of, moshing. Really, really cool. Check out the EP. And like I said, there's a link in the show notes where I've been tossing all of these recommendations, and hopefully you go in there and find some new music to listen to. So let's talk to Scott Winegard, the bassist from Texas Is the Reason. And it's a really fun discussion. And like I said, check out Texas Is the Reason on the road for most of September and October. If they're coming to your town, I've seen them since they've been back. They played some odd shows here and there, and they're great. They pull no punches. They're awesome. So go check them out and check out this conversation with Scott right now. I know that this statement has probably been echoed to you in certain capacities, but like Texas Is the Reason is a perfect gateway band for kids that were into hardcore, but then being like, I can listen to melodic stuff. Like, and I think, I think every kid goes through that, 14, 15, 16 years old as their music taste starts to expand. And obviously, since all of you guys, came from the scene, so to speak, and came together to play this music, was it that sort of gateway concept? Was it something that you kind of recognized when Texas Is the Reason was first around, or did that recognition come later?
It was definitely something that was, well, for me, even like my band before, Fountainhead, wasn't, it wasn't, that, and, we liked that music, but we were already like kind of, for me personally, I was already, my whole world was Discord records and even like shoegaze, and like, I was kind of, the Age of Quarrel was always, number one, but like I still had, this other view. And then even when I was like, like my friends all made fun of me because I bought the Right to Spring record and I loved it. And they were like, what are you doing? Like my older friends who like introduced me to like, who took me to CBGBs and stuff. And they were like, you don't like this. And then I was like, I fucking love this. And then I was like, I thought like, like I was always more, how it was, even though I just said like the Age of Quarrel was like that, that turning point. And, that basically, the Rourke cassette and the Age of Quarrel, I heard that, and I was like, whoa, what is this music? After hearing, the other kind of, generic punk rock that you get into, or that you find like naturally, or that's, easy to find. But I was always kind of, when I started to like figure out what I really liked, it was a lot of the bands that were using their voice more than screaming. And it was a lot of the bands that were not relying on distortion and having a little bit more melody. And I think that's kind of how I always kind of was just, I was always into a different type of music, but I grew up in my, my parents' car in the back seat and listening to like, doo-wop and the Beatles, and, like it was always pop music, it was like from their generation. And so I think I loved the message of hardcore, but I didn't really love like the chug and the anger and the like that about it. And so that kind of, that brought me to, I guess, where I ended up being Texas Is the Reason. But even I was never really in a band that was like 1, 2, 3, 4 hardcore, like, and I tried to play in bands, but it just never really worked out. Like, I was asked to be in bands like that, and, but just never really fell into my into my circle. So like it was weird. Like Fountainhead, like that we had even before what turned into Fountainhead, like that was that was even, we were definitely like, it was hardcore and then like, but it wasn't fast. And it was definitely like this, you know, post, you know, 1987 youth crew thing that, and whatever. Yeah. I don't know. It was like, I'm just trying to, I haven't really thought about it. Like this is this. So thank you for this,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so yeah, I think, but when Texas was coming, I mean, we just wanted to be like, uh, I don't know. We just always thought it was like an indie rock band. That's kind of like, we're just an indie rock band. Like, oh, and then we didn't really had like a, like emo was for Rites of Spring and Embrace. That was never a word that we even would think about calling us. And post hardcore was a little bit too intelligent, I think, for anybody to come up with that term at the time. So we were just like we loved like Seaweed and we loved Superchunk and we loved, you know, British bands and we also loved, all the hardcore bands, Burn and Gorilla Biscuits and, you know, and I don't know, there's so much. And then, but also I think at that time that we ended up being the band Texas, there was so much other music coming out that, we were surrounded by a lot of hardcore, but it definitely wasn't in our circle of, it wasn't coming out of our speakers like personally, unless like, it was like, oh, let's check out, so and so's new band. And like, but it wasn't, we weren't like still like chasing after the new records and, and I feel like, I mean, sometimes like, oh, what band is that? And they're like, you played like, used to play at the same time. Like, but I was like, they were playing at the same time. So I definitely missed them because we were probably playing at one place and they were playing the other place. So, so I don't know, I guess, yeah. I mean, but it was definitely a point. And that's who we were. Like you said, like we were like those guys from hardcore that wanted to like, it was like the gateway for us to like, all right, how do we, and I don't think we, you know, knew what we were doing. And I think in a way we also kind of thought we sounded like a hardcore band a little bit,
Yeah, you had breakdowns. Yeah.
There's definitely mosh parts,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, so it was yeah, it's just, I think it came really natural and really easy. The songs came together in the practice space. No one really ever came and said, hey, I have this song, we should play this song. Like Garrett was writing lyrics, on backs of flyers from like ripping them off Daly's, like, parents' wall that he had flyers. Like, he's like, that's how we got lyrics from,
Yeah.
So it was like a really like, natural thing for us. And also Garrett was the missing link 100% because, me and Chris and Norman spoke about playing music. I mean, I kind of like, it feels like Fountainhead was a band and Norman had some stuff going on and he was doing the whole Hare Krishna thing and it was like kind of getting confusing. And then we had some opportunities like maybe he's, and we just kind of decided that like it was really hard to have that extra person in the band. And, cause me and Chris lived in the same town and me and Chris and Billy lived in the same town, and we just drove to the drummer's house, with trailer, or and so it was like it was just easy, and we always had to go out of the way, and I think at that point it was like I really, yeah, I mean it definitely was that point. It was like we're going to start a band with Chris Daly anyway. Like that was like like was like me and talking to Norm, like don't worry, like we're starting that band with Chris Daly anyway. Like and like that was always our plan. Like and whenever we would see each other, it's like when are we going to play? When we play? And we talked about it a lot. We played twice with the three of us with like all these ideas of like who can sing for us, and these like you've been in bands, you get oh we get this guy, we get that guy, maybe she'll sing and then we were sitting around at Equal Vision where Norm lived and a bunch of people lived, like Tim Owen from Jade Tree lived there. Like he was like it was just like a hangout, and phone rang and it was Garrett. Said he wasn't in Copper anymore, and Steve was like, why don't you get Garrett in your band? And he said he'd come down the next week. He came down the next week. We all vaguely knew him. Like I met him at the first Columbus Fest, saw him maybe 2 times after that, Chris had a better relationship with him because he was touring a lot. Norman met him, that he was, touring more than, I didn't really leave New York State that much. I was in Shelter 108. Um, and, uh, and they saw, you can come up. Um, and, uh, and yeah, so they knew him. They spoke really highly of him. And I was like, cool. I was like, he was rad when I met him. Like and everyone says really great things about him, and everyone loves what he did in Copper. And he came, we drove out to Chris Daly's, parents' house. We got in the room, and that EP, I feel like that we had that EP written that day.
That's amazing. It came together so quickly.
Yeah. It was like, and that was like the demo. It was just like, I really just feel, and like, and yeah, Garrett like showed up with a guitar that was like, wait, you play guitar? Like, we didn't really think that either. It was just like this whole thing, just like kind of like, but yeah, it was like the missing link, and it just felt like, all right. And he was like, yeah, I'm in, let's do this. We'll do this. And it was just, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember driving back to like, the East Village. We're like, oh, we have a band. Cool. And like, this is fun. Like, it actually works now, like,
yeah.
And yeah, then I don't, and it seemed like from that until playing shows was very like, from that to like recording the EP, like, which was supposed to be the demo or whatever, that, like, I don't remember like the hard part of like writing music, or we were like, oh, we got to go and do this. It was just like, oh, we here. Like, yeah, this is here. And then everything just was like, the music just kind of appeared with us.
Right.
It wasn't, no one ever, like, I remember, I mean, I definitely remember sitting in my, my apartment on the East Village with Garrett and being like, how about this? Noodling with like, bass lines, like Drinking Song and, Jack with One Eye and stuff like that. And, I remember, noodling around with, Blue Boy with Norm, and like, like, how about this? How's it go this way? But like, it was never like, oh, it just like kind of like happened. Like, it was just like little parts, or like, a lot of the times it was like, it was like, we'd just be playing, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And we just kind of, and then like, and we just remember that one part, it was never like, remember we did that, and we came back. So it was just like, it was very, yeah, I like, it was definitely, out of all the musical situations I've ever been in, that one was like,
it just started to happen.
It's always,
yeah.
It just was kind of, it was kind of almost, it almost felt like it was always there.
Mm-hmm. Sure. It just needed to be the right combination of people to be able to create it. Yeah. And
yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of what you're saying that is, I want to pick apart, but like just that notion of the decisions that you guys were making in regards to like, obviously like working with Revelation, and what I feel was so, instrumental for many, hardcore indie rock punk kids, whatever, in the 90s, where, like you said, that intrinsic link between, the indie rock / college rock that may have felt unapproachable to many people, but then the approach that, you guys, Get Up Kids, Mineral, everybody that's included in that experience, like, it felt like, for me, just like reflecting on my generation, like listening to Superchunk versus listening to you guys or Mineral, it just felt like you guys and Mineral were so much more like tangible and touchable, even though
even for us, I mean, like those guys were like, I mean, I remember, maybe even Texas was broken up at this point, but I remember like seeing like Seaweed play, and like being introduced to Aaron from Seaweed, and he like said something, oh, you're in Texas is the reason, like, and I was like, and it was just like wild to me that he knew about the band, because like that, I mean, like, we listened to Seaweed Week the whole way to the first Columbus festival. That was like the tape in the car, like, like that, like, and they were just like a huge band, like we loved, like, I love Seaweed, so it was like things like that, but like, it was like almost like not starstruck, like, oh wait, Aaron from Seaweed knows about Texas, like, why, like, how, like, so yeah, I totally get that. And like, and there was that, like, even though Discord had this level of like, oh, we're open and we're a community, but it was like only really a community, like, it felt like it was only a community for like the chosen Washington DC people, sure. Like, like, and I definitely became friendly with a lot of the people in the time, but like, it still felt like it wasn't like, but like in hardcore for me, like going to CBG, because you can talk to anybody, like, I mean, I just anybody, like, my friends would be like, always be like, oh, there's there's Purcell, and I'm like, oh, I want to go talk to him.
Yeah.
Like, They're like, oh, you know, it's like he's outside of the, you know, thing. Yeah, like that. I mean, yeah, it's like
It's approachable.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get that, and I think that's also like kind of what we wanted. Like we didn't want to, like that wasn't our, you know, and you know, I know, and yeah, we didn't really, and yeah, we never like it. Definitely wasn't a. I mean, we definitely knew we were a part of a community and a part of a scene, and I also think that it had a lot to do. Like, I mean, we all, I mean, not Chris Daly, but me, Chris, and Garrett all lived in the East Village, and at the East Village in that time, everybody knew everybody, and it was like everybody, and you couldn't walk down Second Avenue without like stopping to talk to somebody for whatever. You couldn't not go to the cafe that we all hung out on 6th Street and Second Avenue without a handful of people pulling through from every, you know, lots of, and not just hardcore bands or not just like, you know, artists and, you know, just everybody. I'm like, oh, hey, there's that person. You know, like I'd be sitting down and like Ian Savonius walks in and he sits down, drinks, going, okay, what's up? You know, it's like, what? Like, what's going on here? You know, but yeah, it was just like, I think there was just like a different time where we're like, and, you know, we just didn't, that definitely wasn't an interest for us. Like, and, you know, yeah, I mean, it was always important to us that we were available.
Our partners at evilgreed.net want you to have the coolest hoodie for the fall, or maybe the most exclusive color that you can possibly get of a pre-order, or maybe they just want you to like good music. I mean, after all, that's what we're all after, right? But before you dive to evilgreed.net and check out all of their offerings, they want to give you a promo code. This is specific to this show, so that means you can't get this anywhere else, and this discount is something that they don't offer to many people, except you, the listener of this show. Use the promo code REUNION, and you can get 10% off of your first order from evilgreed.net. They are a purveyor and a distributor of heavy music merchandise and obviously music. And they're based in Berlin, Germany. It ships worldwide. It gets to you in the US lickety split. And on top of all of that, the shipping rates to us here in the States are very advantageous. We can hop on that and be able to get something shipped to you that is very awesome. And I don't care if you're into, you know, the hardest of hardcore, whether it's Pain of Truth or Knocked Loose, or you're into death metal, like, you know, Tomb Mold, or I always have a problem saying that band's name, or Blood Incantation, or if you're into like Chelsea Wolfe and that sort of Sargent House scene, they've got it all. But when I say all, it's only the cool artistic heavy stuff. They don't open the doors to like every single record label or every single band partner. They have a specific point of view, and that makes it easier for me personally as I'm kind of navigating where to order. It just makes it easy. So go to evilgreed.net, use the promo code REUNION for 10% off of your first order, exclusive to this podcast. So use it and abuse it. Or actually, you only use it once, right? Don't abuse it. But go to evilgreed.net now.
Mr. Gecko, you're a huge inspiration to us all, but who was your muse?
My dear old Nan. She would tell me, always remember to be true to yourself and to use that fast and friendly claim support on the Geico app. I follow her advice to this day.
Get more than just savings. Get more with Geico.
Playing bass is one of those things where it's like people always either make fun of the bassist and or the drummer, where it's just like, oh, no one pays attention to them, you know, the rhythm section, whatever. But like clearly it's obviously an important part of the band. Yeah. You playing bass, was that out of you know, choice or circumstance? Was that you know, something like you pursued guitar but you're like, oh, bass is more my thing?
I chose bass. My I said like my older friends, I had an older friend named Kevin, and he was like cool skateboarder, punk dude, like always had cool style, and like, and I guess because I was a little good at skating as a younger guy, like they kind of befriended me. But he played bass, and I was like, oh, I want to play bass. But it was, and so like, and he let me borrow his bass, and he actually kind of showed me a few things. And he was not. I don't want to say actually because I don't really know how skilled of a musician he was. I don't remember him like he was never in any bands. Like him and some friends jammed and stuff, but like. They played him, like we came and hang out in my parents' basement. We brought drum set and we like had like, you know, we made a bunch of noise, and he left the bass there for months, you know, and that's kind of how I was like, oh, and I would like, you know, sit around and like try to figure out, and you know, there was a drum set and the bass there, and as much as I wanted to play, I think that's it, honestly. So I played trumpet in elementary school.
Sure.
So that was my first thing, but I wanted to play drums.
Got it.
my neighbor across the street, Robert, who was a year older than me, maybe I think a year or two older than me. He's at whatever. He played drums, and my parents were like, absolutely not. You can hear that thing you can hear them all the time. You're not playing drums. So like, cause I want to play drums, whatever. And so that never happened. And then, fast forward, I played trumpet. I was fine. My music teacher always kind of wanted me to be in chorus. He was like, oh, you should sing. And I was like, I still can't sing. So like, I don't know. Like it was always kind of a weird thing. And was kind of like a bad kid, I guess. And, I just ended up like not really caring about, going to like, band and playing trumpet. And then I ended up, long story short, I was, just bad, and I got kicked out of. I got told not to come back to band, and for being stupid with I hit someone with a drum mallet. I'll just say that. not hard or
right. Just dumb kid
somebody
stuff.
That's yeah. And it was my music teacher, Mr. Bishop, and he was a big guy, and the teacher was like his assistant guy was across. Like we were like on the stage in the auditorium, and it was switch instruments day, and because I always wanted to play drums, like I want to play the timpani, so I had these two mallets in my hand, and such a stupid story. I'm glad I'm talking about it. And I looked up and I saw, I don't remember the assistant's teacher's name, but I remember he had like curly blonde hair, and he just shook his head no, and I just hit Mr. Bishop right in the ass with the mallet.
And then you became person non grata in that class. Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to play in band anymore. And then I ended up giving my trumpet to my friend Lisa, who was like my neighbor, and she played trumpet, and she so that was like, that's kind of my introduction to being a musician. And then fast forward, just going to shows, and like I said, like my friend Kevin left that bass at my house, and I just kind of noodle around, but I never like couldn't really figure anything else. And that was kind of like maybe 10th grade, it wasn't really then, but it wasn't until like I was a senior in high school till I actually bought a bass.
Got it.
But I that spurred from, and I just told Matt this story last year after many years of knowing him, that I literally went to see Judge, and Matt was in Judge, and Jimmy wasn't anymore. And I thought Jimmy was like the coolest dude. Like, he was like, and I was like, wait. And I didn't want to be in Judge. I didn't want to be but I was like, oh, wait. And I knew that these guys were all my age, or close to my age. So I was like, I want to do this. And I went to my friend Ron, who went to the show with. I was like, let's go to the music store. Let's go to that guitar store that you go to, and let's go buy me a bass. And he was like, okay. And like, we went and bought, an Ibanez Roadstar bass, and, and like probably the next day I found Chris Trainer at at lacrosse practice, and I was like, let's start a band. And like we had some, goofy band, doing Cro-Mags covers and whatever we could do. And, I was just like, listen to this, listen to that, like, how about this? And, and years later, we're doing weird shit. But yeah, that was like literally how it started. I did not. And then I had a few, like, there's two guys named Dan, had longer hair than me now. They were like the total typical metal dudes. And they both came to me like, you want to learn how to play bass? And I was like, I heard you bought a bass. You want to learn how? Let me give you lessons. I was like, let's do it. Give me lessons. And like, and they, showed me some stuff that, I probably still hold on to now, but like, it wasn't like, never really took lessons. I just kind of sat and had whatever I was listening to and tried to play along, and like begged people to show me, how do you play that? How do you play? It must have like, I don't know, like Chris Trainer must have showed me so many riffs to every song that I've, ever. He's like, I don't know, he's got such a amazing ear, even back, as teenagers. But like, it was just like, show me how to do that. What's that? He must like probably has, no. But like, it was just like, yeah, I like anybody that I thought that was a good guitar player or like around me, I'd be like, let's do that. Show me how to do that. Show me how to do that. And like, and then
you're picking up from a bunch of sources.
Yeah. It was always a bass. And then I kind of like, after like having, I ended up always having a guitar, because like, it's like, it's kind of weird, just kind of like sometimes just to be playing the bass. I mean, I'm sure there's bass players out there that have a way more open knowledge than I do that can, sustain them. They're boredom, but like I can't clunk around on the four strings like for hours.
Right.
Like, and sometimes, like a nice big chord and, it's like, whatever. But yeah, I've always, bass was always the thing that I always wanted to, and I don't know. Gene Simmons was always the coolest guy in Kiss to me when I was a kid, but I didn't really have like I got to be a bass. It was never like
right, like that was
never,
not the touch point, right? Yeah, I get.
Yeah, it wasn't like I had no like. Yeah, it was literally just like I saw that this band had another bass player, and I always had this thing I want to play bass, and I was like, let's go do it, and I'm gonna fucking be in a band. I want to go, and then also like at that show, there's something I think they were like, oh yeah, you did Today's going to Europe, and I was like. What? I was like, how? Like in a band, like all these guys are friends and they get to like jump around and hang out. Like this is awesome. Like it was just like such a cool, like like it just seemed so cool to me. Like and like it seemed like the best, the best thing. Like get to travel with your friends and like make cool music and have like something cool to say and like share and like they all skated and they all like had cool style. Like it was just seemed. And it wasn't just those guys; it was like all the bands at the time. Like I loved Nausea. I loved like I loved every band that played CBGBs. Like I was, and I just and here like, and just knowing that I was just a little bit like only like a few years younger, or like maybe even the same age, or even older. Like like it was wild to think about. It was like, oh yeah, I was like, we can do this. I can do this.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so as you were, starting to experience all of that and obviously like, being in high school and stuff like that. And were your parents pretty hands off on you getting into all this weird stuff and they just like let you do you, or were they restrictive and
they definitely let me do me. And it's weird because I was there yesterday and definitely like they're like, what? You did what? Like, they were like, you used to do what? And I was like, yeah. I was like, where do you think I was going? Like, and yeah, so, I mean, they no, half of the things or a tiny amount of the things of places I've been as a teenager. But yeah, they were pretty cool. Like, I was very, like the straight edge world was very small. And, I was definitely like, in my personal life as a teenager, like I had some family members that had drinking problems, and I witnessed something, at a family gathering, and I was like, I don't want to drink ever if that's what happens when you drink. So that kind of like, I was like, so I made that decision as like a really young person that I didn't want to be around alcohol. And then growing up, more during, like my parents, both smoked cigarettes growing up. And then my dad quit earlier than my mom, and they fought about that a lot. And in my head, as like however 6 years old or 7 years old, I was like, oh, cigarettes make you fight. And I didn't really like, so I was just like, I didn't want to, they had nothing to do with like, I didn't want to do that. So like, and then when I, heard Minor Threat, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like that, I was like, this is it. And then, everything else started spiraling around because like I heard Minor Threat in probably in 1986 and, 14 years old. And then shortly after, everything else started just popping up. And I was like, oh, cool. So it was like this big starting thing. And, I grew up in 25 miles from, it was like, I get to CBGB's in 45 minutes, on, using the Long Island Railroad. So it was just a natural, but I also like, they saw like I was, I just found a bunch of skateboard decks that drugs suck and, that's like the straight edge, and like, so like I was very, so they knew I wasn't getting into trouble. I wasn't coming home like, drunk or smelling like cigarettes or like,
right.
Probably actually were smelling like cigarettes because people were smoking in clubs.
You're like, it wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Yeah. But like, they also knew that like, but like they knew I was skating and they knew my Kevin and like the older friends, they were, they knew their parents and like they were from around, neighborhood kids. It wasn't like, they were coming from other parts of, Long Island that were, bad neighborhoods, they're just like, so, and but like I had no curfew. I would go to Kevin would pick me up at my house and we would drive to the Anthrax and not get home until like 2:30 in the morning. and they'd be sleeping. I'd come in, my mom would be like, what time did you get home last night? Like 2:30. Like, what'd you do? And I was like, what's the anthrax? All right. How was it? It's good. Like my mom, actually, one thing my mom hated was when I went to CB's and I would eat falafel before and then come home. And then she'd be like, you stink. Like it stinks. Your room stinks. Cause I just, all that garlic and jumping around, sweating and jumping around on everybody, and probably also skated there and back too. So, that was, but yeah, they never really, they would definitely let me do I remember listening, I'm early on, like Suicidal Tendencies. I remember like I Saw Your Mommy was on, and she's like, is this what you want? And I was like, come on. I was like, get out of here. Like even as like a kid, I was like, come on, this is a stupid song, Mom.
Right.
Like
don't pay attention.
And I remember like writing, writing a magic marker on my wall, like some kind of, I don't know what band, like some band's name, and they were like, what the hell's that? And we're like, but they never questioned, or they never saw anything as I was doing as bad or detrimental, even though I was like a bad kid and I cut class and I was a wise ass or whatever. But like I think I was just that's punk rock, I guess.
So you were. Your parents let you do you because obviously they knew that you were not getting into trouble, and you were holding up your end of the bargain, whatever that may meant.
I think, and I definitely know that, like, because there were other people and then kids in the neighborhood who they knew like what other kids were doing, and they knew that I was like, the worst thing I was doing is like jumping someone's fence and trying to like skate their pool in their backyard, or like
right.
Maybe go breaking into a school at night so we can like skate in the gym or something. Like we weren't doing anything bad, and they didn't even know I was doing that. But like that was like really like, if I got caught doing anything like bad, it was like, hey, your son, was skating on the in someone's backyard, like
right.
Like that would have never, and that never got in trouble for any of that shit like that anyway. So
light trespassing, that's totally fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, might have went into some people's houses.
That's okay. I am always excited when I have new ad partners sign on to the show, but this one is very special. Wicker Wood Works. They are an amazing vinyl furniture manufacturer from the Pacific Northwest. Before I dive into their story, they want you to take 10% off of your order over $500 by using this promo code, 100 words. That's the number 100 words. What makes this company special is, first of all, they're incredibly resilient because they literally just had their warehouse and their manufacturing spot burned to the ground. But guess what? They are dedicated in making sure that their orders are filled, and they are just, very optimistic for something that was so tragic that I witnessed on social media and was just like heartbroken because we just started this partnership. But they are filling orders, and they are making sure that the stuff goes out the door, keeping it high quality. And what is it that they do, you ask? They make vinyl for pieces of furniture. When I say vinyl furniture, I'm talking about like record players. Like if you want an awesome display for your records or your record player, Wicker Wood Works is the place to go. I can guarantee that you maybe have seen their stuff on Instagram, but words do not do it justice. I have a piece in my office, and every time someone comes in is like, dude, what is that custom? And I'm like, it's custom adjacent because they offer this and you can get it as well. So it's not specified exactly to my tastes, but it fits right in to my tastes. So go to wickerwoodworks.com, use the promo code 100 words for 10% off your order of over $500. I don't care what size collection you have, small, medium, large, they have something for you. So if you collect vinyl, you have to reckon with Wicker Wood Works. And huge shout out to them for just being a great company. So go to wickerwoodworks.com. When you discovered, because obviously much of your life has been built around food and the culinary efforts, and veganism, you are a tried and true person who has seen every iteration of veganism. And I'm curious, like obviously you going to shows and you experiencing that culture around that time, veganism and vegetarianism were so linked together. But as you what was your initial discovery point? Was it obviously like the music and the bands and the scene that opened your eyes up to that?
Really random, like before anything happened, I like, so my dad worked for, and I still don't even really know if this is a connection, but like my dad worked for the airlines. I worked for Pan Am and went on strike. He was a mechanic and he worked for many, many years, and they went on strike all the time. And there was like one time in high school, they were on strike. It seemed for like ever. And he was like working aside, painting on the side to pay, like to make things work. And my mom started like like a cleaning company because they like, it was like bad. And it just seemed like we were eating chicken, and we were eating chicken every day. Every day it was chicken. It was the same thing. And my parents aren't like they like good food. They like what they like, but they're not like, they were never foodies, you know. I don't, it's like, I don't, they're just like, they just ate to eat, you know. They were just, but they had things that they liked, and there was family stuff that we liked, and, you know, but it was nothing ever anything like out of the ordinary. But then there was this, you know, seemed like forever. And I was in school and I was 15, just like whatever grade you're in, fifth grade and ninth grade, maybe, and 10th grade. And the girl that was sitting behind me, this girl, Rachel, she said to someone else, she's like, "Oh, I don't eat chicken. I'm a vegetarian." And I just went, "What'd you say?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't eat meat. I'm a vegetarian." I was like, "But you said you don't eat chicken. You're a vegetarian." She's like, I was like, "I hate chicken." She's like, "Yeah, go be vegetarian." Like, I don't know if she said that. She's like that was basically, it just clicked in my head. I was like, oh, and like the bell rang for like it was homeroom. Bell rang. Our school library was right next to my home when I walked in, and I just said to the librarian, I was like, "Where's a book on vegetarian, a book on being a vegetarian?" She's like, "Oh, and we have this one book, and it was called like Being Vegetarian." And I swear it was in my parents'. I've been looking for it. It's got to be there somewhere. It's like this green book, Cooper block font. I've tried to Google it because and I took that book. I never gave it back. And then like fast forward it seems like it was only a few months later, but like we were at a show at CBGB's, and again, like my friends were pointing out people, and I don't even know if I ever said this to anyone like in real public, but like it was Steve Youth from 7 Seconds, Purcell, and I vaguely think it was Walter's brother, or maybe it wasn't Sammy, but like it was three of them. But it was definitely Steve and Purcell. And one of them said they were a vegetarian when we were like, and you know, everyone like at CB's used to kind of hang out in little pods of hanging out with people. So like we were just like, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm a vegetarian." And I literally was like, and I was like, "You guys are vegetarian?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, sick." And like, and that was really it.
Yeah.
And I was like, "That's cool." Like that's cool. Like, and I had like a connection, like, you know, and I was like, "That's fucking rad." Like they're vegetarians. And then we went to, like months later, we went to a show at the Anthrax, and it was supposed to be like Beyond, Bold, and Super Touch or something like that. Those bands kind of played all the time. And we showed up and it was like, "Hey, surprise, Youth of Today is doing this video for their song." I was like, "What?" And the song was the No More video. And all my friends were like, "How did you know?" Like that was like their big, like, "How did you know?" And I was like, I had no idea. Like, you know, I had no idea. This is just something that I kind of found on my own. And it kind of, and I also enjoyed it because in the little times that I got to say, "Oh, I'm a vegetarian," people were like, "What?" And like,
Yeah.
The fact that it turned so many heads, that what got me going.
Yeah. You're like, this is great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what really got me going. It was the biggest fuck you to everybody. And you know, people would want to argue with me about it. And I never really was that guy. Like I would go to like a party in high school and like someone's like, "Oh, I heard you're a vegetarian." I'm like, "Yeah, so what? Like, don't you want to eat?" Then no. Like, you know, like I you know, it's like, you know, it's like stupid shit. And like I was like, "No, why not just," and I never really had like, but it was really like, but it was that point too. It was like, whoa, and so that was it really for me. It just kind of like I naturally, but I did see that all just kind of like,
unfold. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, holy shit. And then everybody, you know, and then there was like, you know, the bands that were already, vegetarian, like, what about us? What,
Yeah.
but it was like, it wasn't until then that they did that, it really like opened it up for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of hitting on the Texas is the reason, like touring aspect, like, once you started to, because I know, like you mentioned, Fountainhead, obviously, played shows, you guys released a record, Doghouse, you had experiences, but you weren't doing obviously as much touring as you did with Texas.
We played 12 shows, I think.
12. Okay. That's that's fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
12.
yeah. So Texas was, a very different experience for you. Did you like touring, or did you, I guess learn?
I loved
Okay.
it. I loved everything. I mean, like, it's kind of like, it was like a weird thing, like, because it's like I said, like, from that second that I heard the bands were touring and I saw that and I had that, like, positive, like, enviousness to, like, wanting to do what other people did. And like, like, I think that, like, that's all I wanted to do was, like, be in a band and travel with my friends and, like, and make, music that's, sounds cool and see the world that way. And so, like, when Texas was doing it, it was like, and I think it was like that for all of us. And that's why we did so much so fast in such a short period of time, because we were just like, yeah, you want to, Sensefield wants to go on tour, yeah, Thomas Ring wants to go, like, yeah, they want to play, yeah, like we didn't say no to anything. It was like you want to go here, yeah, you want to, it was like so that was just like everything was available. We said, yeah, you want to play in our loft, sure, let's play in the fucking loft. Like, you want to play in the basement, sure, let's play in the fucking basement. It was like anything. And I think that's, but yeah, I mean, I loved it. I loved, like, everything about it. I mean, I will say that the last tour, the one that the first time the official breakup,
Yeah.
In Europe, like, that was a little rough. And I think that we were kind of all tired and, like, just kind of beat up, and we were just had a lot of noise with major label stuff, and, like, everyone wanted to work with us and couldn't really know who to trust at the time, and we were having trouble trusting each other.
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I remember, like, I would stay up all night and just sleep until someone woke me up for sound check, because it was just, like, exhausting, like, with all the information that was going on at the time. And the shows were great, and, like, I think, and there was never a point where I was like, I fucking hate you people, but I definitely knew everyone was like, like, there was definitely something that needed to, there was definitely a big conversation that was coming after that, because we were, we just said, hey, Capitol Records, we're coming to you, and, even thinking about that, it was, just a crazy, wild, that we made the decision. And then, fast forward to the end of, the plane ride home, was like, hey, we're not going to do this anymore. I was like, huh?
I am thrilled that our partners in Rockabilly.com offer you a promo code, because this gets you 10% off your first order. 100 words or less. That's the number 100 words or less, 10% off of your first order. And let me tell you, they traffic in high quality, officially licensed merch from all scenes, whether it's hardcore, whether it's rap, whether it's metal, whether it's classic rock, they got it all. This is the place to go for gifts for yourself, your friends, your family. It ships from the Midwest here in the United States of America. And it gets to you. I mean, truthfully, I've ordered from them and I've got stuff in like 3 to 4 days here in California. It's incredible. And they're punk and hardcore kids that work there. So you are supporting people who have came from our scene. And that is always incredibly important to me. So go to rockabilly.com, use the promo code 100 words or less right now. You're very right. I mean, just from an outsider's perspective and all the stories that have been shared about your guys' experience during that time, it was so, so pressure filled, where it's like, and I'm sure it's also, to your point, it's everything that everyone's been working so hard to get to, but it's like all of those external pressures that, just completely shattered apart. And you're just like, wait, but we wanted this, but then we don't want this. It feels so weird.
Well, I mean, for me, Garrett wasn't there.
Yeah.
the plane ride home, he stayed, and his girlfriend met him at the end of the tour. They were going to celebrate,
Yep.
our big, we're signing to a big record label, and we just had our first European headlining tour that was successful. Like that was like a celebration. So he was doing that with his girlfriend. I think all of us were single at the time, so like that wasn't a thing for us to do. So we were all heading home, and but I definitely was like, I definitely said more than 2 times, this is all I want to do. We worked really hard on this. I don't think we should walk away from it. And I think that there was so much ego at the time for everybody that everyone thought that like we can redo this in a second with anybody else. And I think that was like the haste. And I mean, like definitely was a hasty decision to like, and immature. Like I'll say that, like, I went along with it, and I got it. I understood. And I definitely don't know. There's a lot of what ifs,
Of course.
and, but, who knows? I don't lose sleep over it. And I never have, but I do think that like, it was like why? What a bad timing. What bad timing? Like, it's like,
Yeah.
And, yeah. And it just, but I definitely said, I was like, I was like, I don't know if we're ever going to be able to do this again. And this seems so crazy to walk away from, and let's take a break. I definitely said, let's take a break.
Right.
And it was like, no.
Yeah.
Done. I was like, oh.
Well, yeah, and truthful, and I mean, I think so much of band life up until truly maybe, just a couple years before the pandemic, like it felt you had to be so declarative of your intentions as a band or an artist, where it's like, we are a band, we aren't a band. And it's like, anytime a band announced a hiatus or whatever, people were just like, what does that even mean? And so like, at that time when you guys were making that decision, like it was either you're doing it or you're not doing it. Like there's no decisions between those two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, fuck, there was so much pressure, like, and like there was, and it was so stupid. I mean, like we weren't like I said this the other day to somebody. It was like, it was like all of a sudden, like Garrett and Norm weren't the guitar player and the singer. They were the songwriters. And it's like, what do you mean you're like, it's like songwriters, we all wrote the songs, and it's like, and, it was like stuff like that. Like, it was just getting like, it was becoming like really weird and twisted, and it's like, and just, and I will say, like, I have a few friends from the bigger labels from that period, and they are true, beautiful, awesome people. But I've met so many people that were my friends there that I don't even know where the fuck they are.
Yeah.
They don't know where the fuck I am.
Yeah.
They don't care where I am, and, and people that I've been to their house, I've done, so many things, met their family, like, but it was just like, and then I definitely, there's a lot, I heard a lot of rumors, and a lot of the rumor things, I was like, oh, that's aren't rumors, man. Like, like I never confirmed or or denied, but it was just like, yeah, yeah, that might have happened. Yeah, you might have heard of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of like weird people that came out of weird times and said weird shit, made us think weird stuff, and yeah, it's just like, and it's like just a kind of weird stuff. I mean, keep on saying weird, but it's like, just like odd things to like be feeding, kids who just wanted to like share their music, and
right.
It got really wrapped up in like, and like literally like it was cool. Like it was like weird. It was strange because, everyone wanted us to be this indie band, and like our first show, the Smashing Pumpkins manager and, like the A&R people from, Atlantic Records, and, like they were there. Like, I know, we didn't ask them to be there. Like, no one who knew who we were. But like, it just was like New York City at that time. It was like, oh, there's a cool show at this loft in New York. And like, and also we knew like some of these people too, but like, it just was that, yeah, I don't, there was people that I always was like, why are we talking to this person?
Yeah.
Like, and I know we have to, because like that makes it, leverage, but it's like,
Sure.
I remember, like, we were on tour somewhere, and like there was someone from some labels like, you want to go out to dinner? And we're like, yeah, sure. And we brought like 13 people with us to like a Shoney's, like,
Sure.
or something. And it's like, and they were like, what? I'm like, yeah, our friends are coming, and it was like, and that's kind of how we treated the situation too. Like, we weren't being dicks, but like, it's like, who is this guy?
Yeah,
and he was like, he like showed up in like a weird part of town, a weird part of this, and it was like, and it was clearly like an outcast.
Yeah.
And like, and then, and like, as however we can be as, cordial or professional, like, you can't be like, fuck out of here, guy, like, you don't want to talk to you, like, but like, you can't do that. And so, but I think in our head, it was like, let's just go to tell them we're going to, Denny's, and we'll bring, all these dudes that we've been hanging out with all day. And
of course.
And, dinners on whatever fucking record label, whatever. I mean, probably still at the end of the day, it was probably a couple $100, whatever. Especially at that time, it was nothing.
Yeah.
But I definitely remember thinking like, what do we just do?
Yeah.
Like,
this is
like,
funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go. Like, cause like, obviously he wanted to come and talk business at like, at our dinner with, the band that he traveled to, North Carolina, wherever it was, like, but yeah, it's like, it was just a very odd time, like for bands, and, like we watched, our friends like do that and like get all the promises and no promises, that like their wishes didn't come true, and they might have got to get their like record, do their video on MTV, and had a budget, and got to move into a nice apartment and got a few nice guitars, but no one was breaking through, and like, and a lot of them like didn't even get to put out another record.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's
and
I'm not even talking about all the obvious ones. There's like so many like
oh yeah,
bands that like that that were running around the East Village. I'm not even talking about punk bands, or it's just like,
so much gets stuck in there. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that machine is just like especially at that time where they were just trying to find that next thing.
Mm-hmm.
That next thing was like, they were just, I mean, we spent a lot of money on those record labels. Those record labels spent a lot of money on us, that's the one. It was kind like, I feel mostly bad for our lawyer who did all the work to get that insane record deal that we were going to get.
Mm-hmm.
But because he walked away from getting a big, like, hey, you get nothing out of this, but like, but it was kind of like funny to be like, shit, like how many flights and how many dinners and how many gifts and how many, whatever, like, how many car rides,
right,
and tickets to shows, and
your expense accounts,
like,
right? Yeah.
I mean, like, honestly, it was like, it was, I mean, there was like probably like, it was probably during 1996. It was probably like every week we had a meeting. Like, there was, I ate upstairs at Zen Palette, which was like the fine dining heaven of veganism. Like, probably more than anybody, like, that ever did. There's one person, but he was also like a person in our music world that had an expense account. And he's one of the, people that I still am in touch with and have a really great relationship with. But, yeah, like, I mean, we definitely took advantage of, but it wasn't taking advantage. It was like, you were
soaking up the experience. Yeah. So
we were enjoying it, but also we wanted to find the right fucking fit.
Yep.
We weren't going to just go to the record label that had the biggest offer or had the coolest bands. And honestly, like, Capitol wasn't really in the circle of things, because Steve, the A&R guy, he thought we were really good friends with we were really good friends with another person that was an A&R for another record label. And because we were such good friends with him, they thought we were signing to that record label no matter what.
Right.
And then when he found out, we're like, wait, like
There's a chance here?
I guess
yeah.
It came out that like it was like that we were going to announce that we were going to go with Interscope, and then like we got a call saying like, hey, you're going to LA this weekend to go meet with Capitol, because they did not know that there was there was a chance,
Right.
and like that weekend we were meeting with Gary Gershon, and his top floor,
Penthouse suite.
office.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. He came. Well, it was like we walked up, we went up there, we did a tour of the building, and we get up to the meeting, and we're sitting on the couch, and we're all like looking at each other, like, what the fuck's going on? And door opens, and Paul Westerberg walks out.
That's incredible. Yeah. What?
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. But and then like he's like, all right, he's like, Paul, this is Texas's reason. Like, I don't think he can give a shit less about what whatever he and like Gary's like, do I get to sign you guys too today? I signed Paul. He's like, are you guys number 2? Like, he's so cocky and confident about it. I was like, okay, whoa, like but,
right.
Like, yeah, just like, so yeah. I mean, we wanted the best thing for our band more, but also like it was like, shit, it was fun. It was fun to be like, oh yeah, we're gonna go meet with Warner Brothers. We're gonna go meet with this guy. Well, this guy manages this guy. He manages Slayer. He wants to meet you guys. Okay, like, sure.
Yeah, you'll drink all these experiences in.
Totally, yeah.
When so obviously you've done different reunions and iterations of What Texas Is the Reason has been. I do. Your feelings once that started to like come back into play, I'm sure were obviously, there was elements of probably fear, trepidation, but then also like once you actually started to do the shows, like it was like, oh, this is great. How do you kind of view the relationship with the band now? Not like with the band members, but just like your own relationship of like playing and experiencing this stuff. Is it all obviously just like gravy? Like, I can't believe we're happening this.
Yeah, well, that was also the thing on the airplane on the flight home from Europe. I was like, whenever this door opens, or however I said it, but basically I said, whenever the door opens, I'm going to be there. I'll stop whatever.
Yep.
To come back, and I've always done that. I've always said that, and there was a point in 2017 that we kind of started writing some songs, because I was working, I was living in Los Angeles and working out there, but we had the group that I was working with, we had a couple restaurants in New York, so I was here home. I was still always called New York home. I was home a lot, and we were always hanging out. Like, we'd always get like, oh, let's get dinner. And it was kind of like, why are we just getting dinner? Why don't we just play music? Like, let's just go. Like, we didn't start this relationship of us four by eating like pizza together. We started this, relationship by making music. So, it took a few times, and we ended up going and with the idea of like making new stuff, and we didn't really know what to do with it, but it wasn't really the best time. But I remember walking down we were kind of where I am, close to where I am now in Greenpoint with Garrett, and I don't know where we were going, but we were walking, and I just hadn't, out of like nowhere, like I just said, I was like, listen, if we're going to do this, I'll move back. Just, I've always said that, like, I was like, I don't need to be in California. Like, this is like, if Texas wants to be a band, we'll be a band. I'll figure out how to live back in New York, and we can be a band, so like that's kind of always what my vision and feelings were. So yeah, I love this music, and it was like kind of, it always was like the band that we envisioned, and it just seemed right, so like, and even when we, like, it doesn't sound dated to me. It doesn't sound like it's music written by, 20-year-old kids. It doesn't sound like, it doesn't sound like, oh, I don't have any like, oh my God, what did we do? Like, there's no like weird, like, there's no ick to it. And like, I'm so like, it's something that there's very few people that I know in the music world that can't get behind there's that, you know, there's something, oh, I don't really like that. And hey, we could talk about my other bands. I can nitpick everything, you know? But with Texas, I just felt it was like, everything just was right for me. And so like, it just, and you know, it just, yeah. So it just, yeah, it's just, I'm super grateful. And, you know, I also say like, it's not all if we were just playing in the room, just the music and there was no opportunities for shows, I'm maybe not just as happy, but I'd be very pleased to be able to spend time and to make that noise with them.
Yeah.
And yeah, so but yeah, it's like, it's definitely strange because there's been so many years of telling people like, no, we're never going to do it again. No, the door's shut, you know, it's not, you know, and it's like, well, it's like, it's not up to me, but like, it's never going to happen. It just can't happen. It just can't happen. It just can't happen. And I don't really know. It's like, I'm not even sure how it happened again this time, but it just, you know.
Yeah. The ball got some momentum and it rolled down the hill and everyone's like, yeah.
I mean,
good.
Well, I moved back and, you know, I started hanging out with my friends because they were around and, you know, and honestly, me, Chris, and John, who plays guitar, we just got together to play and a few times. And after like the third time, like, you know, like obviously me and Garrett were like hanging out and talking and, you know, and Garrett like said something like, I want to come play with you guys. And then Garrett had a birthday party, like it was his 50th birthday, and it kind of just seemed like after that it was like we and it was like a little, we rented a house upstate, and it's like a bunch of people there, a bunch of music all weekend and just playing, just felt really great. And like I don't know how it came up, but like it just seemed like right from there I was like, why don't we do this? Why don't we, like, instead of like, you know, like, because like we were gonna make new music, and it just kind of was like, let's just do this and see how that works. And it just made sense. It was like really natural, but it wasn't really like, all right, you know, it's 2025, it's 30 years, and you know, like it wasn't like this like thing that we needed to like, you know, if we need to make something happen. It was really the strangest, most natural like reformation ever.
That's great. Yeah. Well, and truthfully, it's like that just is also reflective of the relationships that people have. Because usually bands, you know, I mean, the hardest part about playing in a band is not breaking up. And it's like that notion that you get pulled together.
I love that, by the way.
Yeah, it's true. No, it's completely true. But it's like that notion that you get pulled back to the people who you are closest with and the relationships, like all that stuff just is like, oh yeah, like there's no pressure and there's no reason for us to like not do it. And like you said, just the organic way it came together probably felt very similar to just like, oh yeah, the songs kind of fell out originally.
Yeah. And you know, it's just been fun. It's like, you know, it's not easy to like organize, you know, for people in their 50s to like, you know, with like lives to like get, you know, to do what we're doing, and we're figuring it out and we're having a blast doing it. I mean, like Wednesday, you know, Chris and John live in New Jersey, and me and Garrett live Garrett lives in Queens and I live in North Brooklyn. So we live pretty close. So I pick up Garrett, we drive to New Jersey, and we have a little practice space in New Jersey. And Chris found this like really great place on this like old aviation, like, you know, it's like, I don't know how to, it's like aviation center. Like there's like, you know, there's like an old runway there, and there's like all these buildings. Like we're in like this like radio aviation old, and you know, and we have our own practice space. We have all our stuff there. You know, it's like, you know, it's not like this, like one of our friends' bands like, oh, you want to share? Like, and we like saw a picture of it. I was like, share how? Like, like we could share equipment too. Like this isn't you know, and it was like the same amount of money for like, you know, it's just like, you know, 45-minute trip. You know, it's 45 minutes to get there now. But like it would take, you know, it was just like, it made so much sense, but it's like such a like joy to get there for us. And like, we go outside and it's like there's grass and it's green and like we have no pressure of being like, oh, is it our day? Or is it like, we just pick whatever days we want. And that's that like, it just kind of seemed like all the stuff on Wednesday that we were like, oh, like that was kind of stressing us out. Like, like we got to practice and, John sent some messages and, we just like, it was like, oh, this is happening. Oh, do this video for the, Riot Fest thing. Like, and, like things that we also were like, oh, I don't want to do things like that. And like, and it's like, oh, and we just had, everything's just so fun. And it's like so lighthearted and like, no, like, it's not like, and you'd mentioned it earlier, like, don't feel like you have to like, unnaturally like it, like, I said, I was like, nothing's going to be unnatural because everything's just like, that's what I was meant by that, because it was like, it's just so natural. Like, I'm not going to be like, there's no, I'm never going to be the person like, hey, come and do this. Welcome here. Like, I'm hanging out with my cat, Toshi. Let's, like, let's do, not like, that's not our personality, but like everything with Texas, like for me has always just been like so easy to talk about, so easy to stand up for, so easy to be proud of.
That was something, right, Scott? Just, man, I could tell he was excited to talk, and that makes me really happy because then I can just kind of let people cook and maybe sprinkle in a question or two, but they're sharing so many rad stories that I'm glad I could document and bring to you. Like I said, shout out to his manager, John, for pulling this together. Appreciate that. Next week, I have another person who I had a great conversation with from a reunited band. This is Drew Ringo from Sleepy Time Trio. I never thought I would be saying Sleepy Time Trio in the year of our Lord 2025 is not only playing shows, but they're releasing all of their recordings on Solid Brass Records. It's so exciting. It's really cool to watch all these bands get the appropriate documentation and love. And when this came up to me, I was like, dude, I would love to speak to Drew about his experience with Sleepy Time Trio. Because truthfully, I was only sort of a surface level knowledge haver in regards to Sleepy Time Trio. So I wanted to peel back the layers. And that's exactly what we did. So next week, Drew Ringo from Sleepy Time Trio. Pardon, I just burped. I'll leave that in there. Until next week, please be safe, everybody.